Hi Al, this is DLOS again. So we're a week on since the assembly of the Ender 3 Pro, and I just wanted to do a quick video to cover some of the things I've learned. A couple of big ones would be don't leave it unattended, or at least without some way to watch it, which will also be covered in a later video, how to put up a web system with the camera. But then also the fact that scale is important when you're making your own models.
Beneath the haunted moon, for fear that daybreak might come.
But I guess the biggest thing I'm going to cover in this one is just how to actually start getting things done or getting things printed, and some mandatory ones like the cover for this fan, which you can actually print, and then also this filament guide, which I've already managed to run into and break. But that's the cool thing about a 3D printer is you just print you can print the new part to replace it, which I'll have to do. So yeah, let's get started, and I'll show you some of the stuff that I've done and the steps to get there. So once you've assembled the printer, leveled the bed, and done your first test print, the thing on your mind is going to be, what's next? How do I actually start printing things I want? The best way to get started is to head over to thingiverse.com. That's what I'm showing on the screen here, and that's a database where you can search for models other people have created, which you can then download and print on your printer. Once on Thingiverse, what you want to do is search for the item. So in this case, we're going to search for the fan guard for the Ender 3. That will bring up a list of items, and then what you want to do is pick the one you want. So we'll pick this one. And then you want to download all files. You can also read comments and read what other people have done with it. But at this point, this will bring down a zip file. Inside the zip file, you'll see a list of directories and files. To be honest, I haven't really gone through much. The JPEGs are going to be the JPEGs from the Thingiverse page where it shows some pictures of it, but the files, this is the one that you want to go into, and it's got an STL file. What that STL file is the image model file that we're then going to take to put into the slicer program. So on the thumb drive that came with the printer, there is a data folder, and inside that data folder there is a software and drive. This holds a program called Creality Slicer. And for a 3D printer, you need a slicer program to take the 3D model and literally slice it into layers so the printer knows how to print them. So what you'll need to do is either install this slicer program or another one of your choosing. There's a lot of available options. You can Google search and see what a lot of them are, but there's quite a few out there. This one is actually a fairly simple, straightforward one to use. The only warning I'll give is when you install it, depending on if you log into your computer as an administrator or not, for some reason you need to run the application as an administrator. Not sure why, just one of those things the way they developed it. So what will happen is when you launch that program, it'll come up with this screen. And so then you need to load your file. So what we're going to do is we're going to go load that STL file, and I'll back up a little bit here. That was inside the zip file. So inside the zip file we had these different folders, and inside there was a files folder, and that'll have this STL. It's a .stl type file. Opening that will open it in the slicer program, and it'll show the model then sitting on a representation of the bed of the printer. You can actually go right through in simple mode here, and there's just some key things to be aware of. There's a material selector. You want to select one of the two PLAs, assuming you're using the PLA filament, which if it's your first printer and you're just getting started, I guess we'll assume that's what you're using. At least that's the easiest one to start with. And then there's some profile settings, and what this is going to do is as you change these, you'll see these impact the print time. But what this is also doing is it's setting the height of each layer. So the more slim the layers are, the more compressed they are, and the better quality you will get. But it'll also then impact the time to print. Each time you go to a smaller layer, it's going to take more time than to to print the model. Key part with this one, and something that I didn't do, is you need to check the box for print support structure. And what that means is if you don't print that, as it tries to print these layers going across, it's going to run a layer of filament straight across this opening, which without any support below it is going to cause it to sag. Now I show a picture here of mine where you can see it didn't sag much. I lucked out, but depending on what you're doing, that can be something to keep in mind. If you click this, it'll then print support structures under here to help hold that up while it's printing. If for some reason you ever print something where the filament's just going out and stopping, then you definitely need a support structure because there is nothing to support it. Here it's spanning this gap, which it actually managed to do without issues too badly, just a little bit of deformation on the bottom. The other selector here is for your platform adhesion. And so what that's going to do is it's going to print something around this to help hold it to the platform. For this one, it should be fine without it, but if you've got something that's got a real thin, like if it's just a thin piece, then what you can do is you can either add a brim or a raft. What a brim is going to do, and it's a bummer it doesn't show the representation on the screen, but I can show a picture of it. What the brim will do is it'll print a single layer much larger than the actual item, and that way there will be more of it around and it'll help hold it once it gets to printing the model itself. A raft will actually print several layers, so it'll end up with a little bit of a platform that again is going to be bigger than the actual model that it'll then print the model on top of. But that will also then use much more material and will take longer to print. So you can see it goes from an hour 26 down to an hour 15. So once you've got it set the way you want it, and in here you can move around by, if you hold down the right mouse button, you can rotate it around. The roller will roll you in and out. And you can actually, when you're doing other models or you're playing with other things here, you can actually change the scale, you can change the rotation and reverse it. But one key thing to keep in mind here is if you ever do mess it up, like for some reason if you drag it around, if you right click, you can reset positions. And so if you've got a bunch of different ones you're all lining up on here, resetting positions will put them in some semblance of order. You can also delete or reload. Alright, so once you have it the way you want it, what you're going to want to do is actually save it. Oops, sorry. What you're going to want to do is save it as a G-code. The G-code file is going to be what the printer actually reads. So this is what you would then save onto your SD card for taking over to the printer. So then what you do is put the SD card in the slot in the printer, and when you power it on, you would go through those steps we referenced in the other video as far as preheating PLA, and then once it's up to temperature, then you can go to print from SD card. Now remember, you may have to do the init SD card step first, so it registers it, and then you can go to and browse into the SD card to select the board fan guard G-code file and start the print. Running the time lapse of the print that I did here, you will see if you watch through it where it spanned that one opening and the filament sagged a little bit like what you saw in the picture. I do still have quite a bit to learn here. You may have noticed in the time lapse that there was quite a bit of filament that had fed out before it started the print, which it then printed over the top of. Could be something that's causing some of my problems, but it's just one more thing that I've got to learn how to get the settings for the printer correct and how to avoid things like that happening in the future. So I will be covering, as I learn and as I go through it, I'll be covering them in further videos. But that finishes this video, at least as far as how to get to an initial point of grabbing models off the internet and printing them. So I hope it was at least a bit helpful, and I will see you again next time. Thank you.